hit the subscribe button and the notification bell right now so you never miss an episode of Operation Truth. Send us an email, ask your questions, and very possibly we'll address your question on the air.
Operation Truth, the show they don't want you to see. Now, here's your host, Lou.
Hi, everyone. This is Operation Truth. My name is Lou Palumbo. This is Tom Fuentes with us, my co-host. Last episode, we were addressing, I would say, quite comprehensively, atmospheres in the Middle East with Israel and the Ukraine. Shortly, we're going to get into, I'm going to have Tom explain why we still like being in the Ukraine, because we're spending a disproportionate amount of money supporting that. But when we were ending the last episode, something that once again has a correlation to our borders popped up. It has to do with people that have entered this country legally and illegally. And now we're experiencing massive demonstrations across the United States. Tragically, most of them are anti-Semitic, which is rather confusing. I don't know what the Jewish population did to anyone out here, folks. If your complaint is they control the media, get off your rear end and work towards controlling something in your life. You're crucifying or criticizing a demographic because they pursued things that they thought would be important that they wanted to participate in. It's 2.4% of the population, roughly 7,600,000 people. I mentioned that to you in the last episode. But now we're having demonstrations across the country disrupting our major cities. And when I say disrupting our major cities, let me put this in context for you. When a large group of thousands of people or 200 people tie up a city street, that might prevent an emergency vehicle from transporting someone who needs to get to a hospital because of an automobile accident, cardiac arrest, any number of issues. I don't know where anyone got the idea or was left with the impression that you had the right to do that in our society. More importantly, when are we going to grow the chops to get this back into alignment? We are not adverse to people orderly assembling to protest something. That's what makes our country great. I got the memo on that one. But what I'm finding is this phenomenon that we have everybody from all over the planet here talking about what they don't like is going on in their country or praising the country they come from. Go back, okay? You celebrate St. Paddy's Day. I've been them. They're disruptive. There's violence. There's fighting. There's intoxication to a sickening level. If you're so attached to Ireland, go back. Columbus Day. If you're so attached to Italy and you want to celebrate this wonderful culture that's attached to Italy, go back. The Puerto Rican Day Parade. We've had horrific episodes with the Puerto Rican Day Parade, wilding, etc. Police were told not to address them. I know this factually. I'm not speaking off the cuff. I know this factually. Told to lay back. If you love Puerto Rico so much, you want to celebrate it, go back. I'm kind of done with this, guys. I'd love to see everybody's affections and attention be given to this country unconditionally. Everybody who's come to this country, you're welcome. But when you come here, you have to wrap your arms around the fact that you might have to abandon some of your cultural likes. I don't know where anyone got the idea that this country was going to open its arms to the planet and everybody that came here, regardless of religion, ethnicity, culture, lifestyle, him, hers, these, thems, and those. Everybody's going to be entertained to be happy. It just isn't going to happen. It's just the way life is, guys. We're having a hard time getting along with each other. I remind people of something I said, and I say it rather tongue-in-cheek and jest, but it's so sad it's true. Most people don't have the ability to have a relationship with a pet, no less a person. Just look at your divorce rate. Look at the domestic violence, not just in this country, globally. I don't know what to say to everyone. But if you're going to come here, assimilate. If you don't want to assimilate, leave. What I personally think, and Tom, I'd like you to give me a little of your own insight and feeling as to this next statement. We need to shut access to this country. We need to identify who is adversarial in nature, who is legal or illegal, and begin a deportation problem, not continue to fester this problem at the border to where we are so overrun that we lack the assets to take care of them, house them, clothe them, feed them. Our cities are overrun. Eric Adams is telling you it's destroying New York City. We don't have enough people to help assimilate them. We only have 800,000 law enforcement agents, guys, and where are the social workers in the world here? I don't see them. We don't have enough people to deport them. They're sleeping on your streets in the city of New York on Madison Avenue and 45th Street, Midtown Manhattan. some wonderful retail stores up there. I could rattle them off, not that it matters. Who's running this show at this point? I keep telling you, and Tom doesn't necessarily agree with this, but we've overpopulated the country. We've overpopulated the country with everybody on the planet. I don't think this was the grand design of the founding fathers. I know they landed the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor in the late 1800s. You're tired, you're poor, you're wretched masses. Guys, you got to keep everything in context. And we've got the cuckoo completely left the clock. And we're all sitting here paralyzed because we don't know what the right thing to do is. The right thing to do is what is best for our children and our country first. It's very, very simple. No more access to the United States, period, until we get our house in order. And then start to figure out who it is we need to address to stabilize this country and make it safe. By the way, your FBI director, of which Tom is not a fan, his own reasons, and he's a better versed in that issue than I'm ever going to be, has come out once again, and he's now worried about domestic terrorism. Lone wolf. Guys, it's a little more extensive than lone wolf. The number of people that have come in here from adversarial nations is overwhelming. I don't know where anyone gets the idea that they might not be conspiring to carry out something. And by the way, based on the fact that we didn't pick up on this thing in Israel, what makes you think we wouldn't miss it this time? Tom, your feelings on this, please, sir.
Okay, well, first of all, when you talk about the people that are here that, have come in here and hate the United States and are out protesting, okay, have them go back where they came from. But a number of the protests that you see on the college campuses in particular, I think the majority of those protesters are spoiled Americans. So where are we going to send them back to? Their mother's womb? We're stuck with them. And the fact that they've been indoctrinated into hating the U.S. or being in support of terrorist organizations and atrocities and genocide and all of these type of things, what do we do with them? We have failed in our educational programs. We have failed in, you're right, all of the assimilation, but we're not assimilating our own young people into the American culture to support the United States. So I think that's a big problem right off the bat.
Tom, but there's a response to that that's going on. You're listening to major entities, law firms, businesses, et cetera, saying they will not hire these people. And believe me, we know who they are. There's no way you can hide in this country today. You know better than anyone, even at least as well as I do, if not better, that technology allows us to track everybody in this country, whether it's a plate reader on a highway or when we send out Taru from the New York City Police Department and we videotape demonstrators. We know where the problems are, and I think we're starting to experience a little backlash. What you're alluding to more directly deals with the protests on some of these universities that are anti-Semitic. I don't know why they need to be in the fray. You're still on the learning curve. That's why we have you in an educational institution. But then again, what you're talking about is some of the individuals who are teaching our children are basically brainwashing them. Again, I go back and say, what is the deal with this anti-Semitism, guys? When did it become in vogue to teach people to hate? It's bad enough that it goes on in a region of the world, which is religious driven, by the way, known as the Middle East. Now we're going to fester this problem in the United States. We're going to start to teach our young people, as Tom just spoke to hate? What the hell is going on here? And you're the smart people. I go back and remind you of something I love to say. Back during the Kennedy administration, they alluded to the best and the brightest, all the people that went to college. College became the new thing to do. And the Ivy Leaguers, look what the smart people have done to your country, ladies and gentlemen. This country should be run through common sense, logic, and reason. Civility, decency, and respect. You'd get 10 times more done than we're getting done right now. But Tom, please know this. These children are not going to go unaddressed. They're going to pay for it in their careers. And I have to tell you, my concern also is that we're going to see more violence directed American against American. I think the problem with conservative people, they're just conservative. They kind of keep to themselves. This left, this Democrat Party that I don't recognize, having been a fan of the most, I think, talented elected official in our lifetime, John Kennedy. You may not agree with that, Tom. I just thought so much of this man because he grew into this job. He was the quintessential leader. This country was galvanized under him. By the way, we mentioned this word galvanized. What's going on right now is we're galvanizing all the nations in the Middle East to rear up against Israel. All of these nations that are of Muslim faith, Muslim beliefs. That's what's happening here also. There's a master plan attack to this. But you know what? I got to be honest with you. I don't understand why there isn't more chatter about going right after Iran. What are you waiting for, ladies and gentlemen? I am curious here. It isn't an if scenario. It's a when. What are you afraid of? China? You're afraid of Russia? I'm not sure either one of these countries are going to get into a fray with us because China's having its own problems. Am I right, Tom?
Yeah,
China's
absolutely.
having their own issues. I don't think they're so eager to get into a war with us. Russia, we've degraded Russia with this proxy exercise in the Ukraine. By the way, Tom,
I think,
why
well,
not?
I'll stop you there. I think
Go ahead.
the opposite. We have strengthened Russia. They were a weak army. They were not capable of offensive operations going into Western Europe and any of that. And in the last 2 years, Russia decided to, okay, enough of this. We're going to expand our army to now over 1 million soldiers. We're going to expand our technology. We're going to put our factories to work 24/7 to make wartime equipment, much like the U.S. did during World War II. So I think that Russia was way weaker 2.5 years ago than they are today, and that's thanks to us.
Why don't we want to get out of the Ukraine, Tom?
Because Biden is completely compromised. He's gotten exposed, and everybody wants to ignore the evidence. The Republican committees investigating Biden have copies of the transactions, the money that was transferred from China, from Ukraine, from Romania, from the wife of the former mayor of Moscow to the Biden family. And especially in Ukraine, the tens of millions of dollars that were sent from Ukraine to the Biden family. And obviously now, it's starting to show up where we're seeing actual checks written to Joe Biden, the most recent one this week, $200,000 check. And I think that's why corruption is such a horrible offense. I worked corruption cases. I worked organized crime in the FBI. It required public corruption. It required judges, police, senators, congressmen to be corrupted. And then they owed the mafia money back. They owed them political support back. And I think that the reason it's so heinous is because then you don't have good government. You don't have the enforcement of laws like you should have, or policies that you should have. And in the case of Biden's, from day one with the Ukraine, they've given Ukraine whatever they ask for and more. And I think this is ridiculous. And then Biden tricks the people of the United States by saying, I'm going to hold a announcement. I'm giving a speech from the Oval Office. It's only the second or third time in 3 years that he's spoken from the Oval Office because of Israel, because of the emergency in Israel. That's what we're going to talk about, how we're going to support Israel. He gives the speech. And in the speech, oh, by the way, I'm going to be asking for more than $60 billion for Ukraine and less than 20 for Israel. So it was a bait and switch trick that he's getting the American people riled up that we're going to support Israel. Oh, by the way, we're really not. We're going to support the Ukraine yet again, yet continuously.
The change from currency systems to fully digital cashless societies has intensified fear around the world. In mid-September, Wells Fargo and Truist banks planned major layoffs as an impending 2024 recession has been predicted by many economists. Many analysts are predicting silver will hit an all-time high in 2024. That's why you need to own silver as a hedge. Green energy demand will possibly turbocharge silver prices to $50, $100, even $300 an ounce, according to many experts around the world. Silver is a proven hedge against inflation. Since 1971, silver has returned over 11% when averaged yearly. Hard Asset Management is a trusted leader in precious metals and rare coins for nearly 40 years. We have the guaranteed lowest prices, fast and easy ordering, expedited shipping, with award-winning customer service available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. CST, Monday through Friday. So protect yourself from the chaos. Invest in stability with Hard Asset Management. Call now and get your free Hard Asset Management information kit on how easy it is for you to own silver. 844-426-4653. Free delivery and extra silver with every $10,000 bought. Use promo code 007.
Tom, there's another discussion to be had here, and you brushed up against it in the last episode, I believe, and that's the fact that Netanyahu is on the outs, and he's looking at potential indictments for corruption. I hate to say it to you, but this administration is floundering as well. And this episode going on right now in Israel is one which could, I would say, give him a little bit of a pat on the back, providing he handles it properly. I think that's the operative concept, his ability to handle and manage this properly. I will tell you with certitude, the reason we have 2 aircraft carriers and a strike fleet in the Mediterranean is not because of Joe Biden. He's been told that's what has to be done. I don't think he has the aptitude or the understanding for what needs to be done at this point, independent of allegations that are being made against him, which seem to be coming to fruition. And guys, I would say this to you for 1,000th time. I'm going to keep reminding you. I'd say the same thing if he was a Republican. I really don't care. I have no loyalty to Republicans or the Democrats, because between me, you, and a lamppost, they have both sold us out here. They're
That's
all
exactly
sitting in
right,
Washington.
Lou. That's not a minor point to make, that the requirement or the ability to send almost unlimited money to Ukraine is taking the support of Republicans and Democrats both. You have Lindsey Graham on the Republican side, all of the neocons going back to before the Iraq War, supporting this, and then of course the Democrats. Everybody is in favor of sending money to Ukraine to help good old Joe, who actually pocketed tens of millions of dollars from his relationship with Ukraine and his son's relationship with Ukraine.
You know, Tom, this little war in Israel right now is something that could help bail out this administration, because, as I mentioned before, it's distracting us from other not bigger issues, other issues that are critically important to us domestically, like this indiscriminate crime that goes on in our major cities. Guys, if you want to see something that'll alarm you, don't listen to me, don't listen to Tom. Get off your haunches and go look at the crime stats in Washington, D.C. Carjackings, according to all your media outlets, are up over 106%. Your homicides are up over 30%. Your sexual assaults, your robberies, going through the roof. I don't know what to say to everybody in this country. You know, part of what I constantly remind everyone is the reason they're able to perpetrate this nonsense is because we're all distracted. Stop worrying about your generation of phone, your flat screen TV, your vacations. You do have to worry about your children, education, housing, food, medicine, absolutely. But guys, you better start listening to what we're trying to convey to you here. We're not trying to tell you who to vote for. Tom is more inclined to do that than I am, to be very candid with you. And I don't say it as a criticism. Tom, I respect everybody's political views, by the way. Even if you support this administration, that's what makes our country wonderful. You're allowed to dissent, but it's got to be done with some level of decency and decorum, all of which is left to conversation. All you have to do is turn on MSNBC and listen to some of their journalists, like Joy Reid, for example. One of the things I'm really struggling to understand, and I hope this is not taken out of context, I objectively watch the news. I believe you keep your friends close and the enemy closer, and the media is our enemy, guys. I listen to all these young women, attractive, intelligent women, and I don't say that to be pandering or to objectify you, but you know, a lot of you are. You got a lot going on. What's with all this hate that comes out of your mouth on a daily basis? All these brutal criticisms. You know, guys, be careful you don't become that which you despise. You all piss and moan about Donald Trump and how brutal and heartless and indiscreet he was, and talking about people and addressing people, including the Pope. I heard you. I hear you. You do the same goddamn thing, for Christ's sake. What are you talking about here? It's like hypocrisy 101. And Fox is no help either, because Fox doesn't straddle the middle of the road. They seem to be the representative of the Republican Party here, and I'm not interested in that. But I do watch them all, to be honest with you. I do tell you this. A couple of weeks ago, I watched MSNBC, Morning Joe. I used to like that show prior to this whole, Trump administration, where they kind of went off the rails and now everything is anti-Trump. They talked about him for 2 hours. He's out of office over 3.5 years. When are you prepared to let him go away? And guys, let me say something else to you. If you all think the only prosecutable person in this country is Donald Trump, boy, are you naive. We have more people, and I'm not even talking about Menendez. Tom is talking about the president of the United States. And if you're not following what's going on with Hunter Biden, which has left the discussion, by the way, conveniently as a result of this issue in Israel, please plug back into it, guys. Try not paying your income tax. Try income tax evasion in the millions of dollars and see where you land. Try lying on a federal firearms form known as a 4473. It's a felony with a 10-year prison sentence attached to it. Try that one on. Guys, you got to pull your heads out of your heinies. I'm not saying that to be mean, but I'm telling you, you've got to become part of this conversation and latch on to what Tom, myself, the producers of the show. Christian Briggs is trying to warn you about this transitioning into digital currency. I was hoping Christian was going to be here today because I'm trying to get a little bit of the landscape where he's far more astute as to what's transpiring regarding this war in the Middle East right now and how it's going to impact this economy. Tom and I are talking to you about it right now, and we're not economists. We're law enforcement backgrounded individuals. We're talking about in the hundreds of billions of dollars. Connect the dots, guys. We've spent 115 billion in the Ukraine already. We're looking at another 60 billion tagged on to this requirement for Israel. I'm struggling to understand, as I said to you before, why aren't we separating out this aid for Israel? We talk out of two sides of our mouth. We're in your corner. We got your back. We're going to be there for you. Really? Separate what needs to be funded and allocated for Israel and expedite it through. And I absolutely guarantee you, this is something that will be supported on both sides of the aisle. And while we're on the topic of these conversations we're having, Tom, about the dissent of our students and the anti-Semitism, who's more anti-Semitic than Democrats? Omar, Tlaib, Jayapal. Where's the outrage, Blumenthal, Sanders, Schumer? You're all full of it in plain English. I don't hear a peep from you guys. These people should be. Now, let me just go one step further so you clearly understand how strong I feel about this. Omar and Tlaib were brought into this country. We provided them a route to citizenship, which means it lends itself to some loyalty to this country first and foremost, okay? Not the old place you came from. I would literally take them out of office and I would deport them. I don't think because we naturalize you gives you the right to speak in a way that's counterproductive to the safety, the security of this nation, or harm our political system, and that's what they're doing. For whatever reason, this young girl, Tlaib, can't latch on to the truth. You have that much hate in your heart that it's fogged the truth for you guys. The truth is the way out of this mess that we're in, not this continuing rhetoric that stirs the pot. I got it. You're all concerned about the overreaction by Israel. Until you sit in their shoes, don't be so quick to judge. That's some lesson I learned in my life. I pulled back my horns quite a bit in judging people. We don't live or work looking over our shoulder. Oh, yeah, by the way, before I forget, we're arming the Israeli populace. Am I right, Tom? The same way we did in the Ukraine as we sit here telling the American public, you shouldn't have guns. Listen, I don't like guns. Anyone that does, I might have an issue with it. I don't like anything that's designed was to harm other people. But live in the real world with me for a moment. Since the beginning of time, mankind has mastered the art of harming one another. I don't get this. Tom, myself, Brian Williams, TJ, a group of us, Christian Briggs, we're here to try to make this place better than before we leave than the one we found it. How about you all start running that thought through your head and put your agendas to the side? And I address everybody with that. That's not a political statement, Google. That's a statement of fact, a statement of need. What's the break point here, guys? I didn't mean to completely go on this rant and exclude you, Tom, but I want to go back to the Ukraine for a moment, if I may, Tom. Aside from the Bidens, who optically and perhaps factually have benefited based on documentation that's being now provided that no one seems to be inclined to explain, not Jean-Pierre, who double talks and flat out lies to you in these press conferences, this is shameful. She should be removed. Anyone that has a problem with veracity in my world needs to be taken out of the equation. Republican, Democrat, tall, short, black, white, I really don't care because you're festering this problem. But
Rare coin prices have exploded in the last 3 years. Hard Asset Management, one of the world's largest precious metals and rare coin dealer firms, makes recommendations on what to buy for collectors who know what they're looking for. We maintain one of the world's largest rare coin inventories for individuals seeking to diversify precious metals and rare coins. We can make strong recommendations in areas that we feel have the strongest potential for long-term growth. Call today, 844-426-4653 to receive our free rare coin newsletter or register online at bmcham.com. Free delivery and extra silver with every $10,000 bought. Use promo code 007.
let me go back into this Ukraine, Tom. Independent of Biden, what else is going on there? Who else is benefiting from it?
Well, the military-industrial complex in the United States, all the tons of money that are getting allocated for the weaponry that was provided to the Ukraine before the war. I mean, going back to 2014, when the coup happened, and the current administration, Zelensky's predecessor and now Zelensky, come into office, and they're getting prepared for war with Russia since 2014 by us, and theoretically by some support from NATO at the time. But the idea is that we're going to create this massive, efficient, competent Ukrainian army, and they're going to go after the incompetent, worthless Russian army, and they're going to march all the way to Moscow, depose Putin, take over the government of Russia, and then our major companies can come in and loot the mineral wealth of Russia, since Russia won't be able to take care of itself. And the opposite has happened. We give all this money, we give all this equipment to Ukraine, they steal it, they misappropriate it, because it already was the most corrupt country in Europe. It was already said by our State Department for years. So now they've proven it. We give all those millions of dollars in cash, much of it disappears. The hierarchy of the Ukrainian government are living in the lap of luxury. They now have houses in Miami and on the Mediterranean, in Italy, based on our money being siphoned off for their personal use. The military equipment we send over to fight Russia, all this fancy equipment goes over there, and now all of a sudden it's turning up in Mexico, the Middle East, Africa, in arms markets in Kosovo, because the crooked generals in the Ukraine are stealing it and selling it for their own gain. And our military, when confronted by the media and many people saying, why aren't we how come we don't have a program that ensures that what we send to Ukraine, gets to the battlefield and is actually put to use? Well, we don't need it. We try. And then finally, in the last year, they say, well, okay, we're going to start tracking it. And we don't hear anything much about that at the moment. But that's the problem with Ukraine, is that it was crooked before the war started. It was crooked during the war. They haven't done anything to diminish Russia's military. Russia is just sitting there, I think, biding its time, occupying the Donbass and the eastern provinces of the Ukraine, and they're just sitting there. And Ukraine, for about a year, was throwing its brigades against the Russian defenses, being slaughtered. So you hear estimates now that Ukraine has had over 400,000 soldiers killed, and much of the corroboration of that comes from our satellite coverage showing the graves being dug in Ukraine, our analysts analyzing the obituary reports in the newspapers in Ukraine, and they're adding up the numbers going, they've got over 400,000 dead soldiers in the Ukraine. And we just want to send them more money, more equipment to keep them throwing themselves at the Russians on suicidal attacks.
I just have one observation here, Tom, and listening to this irrefutable truth that this Ukraine is just immersed in corruption, along with this company, Burisma. And the best idea that we could come forth with, best idea that we manifested, was the son of the vice president of the United States should be involved with them on some level, guys. I don't know what to say to you. Forget MSNBC, forget Fox, forget CNN. Just look at this for what it is, guys. Independent of your politics, your agenda, who you think you want to be warm and fuzzy with, the son of the vice president of the United States was involved in this country, in this corrupt company called Burisma that we were pursuing because of corruption. Someone sit there and please explain to me what's going on without insulting my intelligence. There's one other thing, guys, I want to mention about this thing with Israel. And I mentioned this, I think, in a prior episode. Make no bones about it. The United States is going to be involved militarily, and I would say a rather heavy capacity, in this war. There is no other option if Israel's going to continue to prevail. The next part of this discussion, and I want to get into this in the next episode, is getting the genie back in the box. How do we mend this fence with all of these countries that we were kind of skipping along with, going in a forward motion with Israel, relationships with the Middle East countries, Saudi Arabia, for one? How do we get those back on track after this whole war, which I'm gravely concerned is going to be somewhat protracted? I don't know, people, if you're not following this, these are not wham, bam, thank you, ma'ams. We're in the Middle East for 20 years with this Afghan and Iraq incursion. This is going to be protracted, kind of like the Ukraine. Guys, I'm going to give Tom the last word, and then we're going to wrap this up today. Tom, want to finish?
No, I agree with you, Lou. We are going to be involved in this. And I think that we're doing our best to encourage support for the U.S. using our military against adversaries of Israel. We put these aircraft carriers out there, and it's basically like sticking our nose in the middle of this war zone and saying, punch us. Come on, we dare you. And then as soon as the first punch gets thrown, the first successful missile hits an aircraft carrier or destroyer, or the first aircraft gets shot down with an American pilot getting killed or captured, then we're going to have the hue and cry. We got to do something about that. We've got to retaliate. And I think that's the goal in this case. Call me cynical, but I think our administration is trying to create a situation where we get attacked or we have victims that are American service members, and then we use that as the excuse to launch our big attack in the Middle East.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call it a day. Operation Truth. You can contact us at operationtruthofficial@gmail.com. Please encourage people to listen to this podcast, and more importantly, to become part of this movement. That's what we're really working towards here. We need to start a movement to try to get this country back on track. And, you know, some of the ideas that I speak to seem a bit extreme, but they're really not. But most importantly, they're really necessary. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode. Tom, I thank you as always for your wisdom and your insight, and we'll be back.